Hey, good morning, folks. Good morning, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, very well, very well. Thank you, Bayang. How are you? How is everyone?
I'm good, thank you.
Hello.
Hey, Prashant. Hey, Tom. Tom, are you there? Manuela is trying to join. Not able to connect on the audio bridge. Wade is here. We have folks joining in. Let's give them a few more minutes. Okay. I think in the interest of, because we have a tight schedule today, let me just go to the schedule and say what were the action items that we have for today. I hope everyone can see my screen. It's, let me just log in and update this page. Uh, Okay. I'm going to pop up this link here in the group chat. If possible, please add your name to the attendee list. For anyone who is not aware, this is Nephew 6 security meeting. Thank you for joining in. Let's begin. I think we have a quorum. People might join in a little bit late. I was been informed by a few of the other folks that they might join in late. Are we expecting someone that we have Shiv here, Prashant is here, Brian is here, we have Buyung as well. So okay, unless anyone thinks we should wait, we can start off. Can we? Okay. So in terms of like the initial updates, last time in terms of the task list, let's just quickly skim through the task list. Uh, Call for review for the secrets management. I think this was already called for the review. Uh, if folks, if you have time, if you have interest, please review this document. This was created by Prashant. The action item is for everyone. Subhash gave a presentation last time about this thing. Subhash, any quick statement in the context? Folks, do you hear me? Hello. Is it okay?
I
All right. Okay.
Shabazz can't hear him.
Okay.
He's mute.
I think he's muted. Yeah.
All right. So okay. Prashant, you've already added this document, right, Prashant? If you can
Yeah.
add the link as well, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Add the link to the, or maybe we should have the document added in the documentation section itself. We can have subsections here. Uh, Service mesh requirements have been added. Service secrets mesh. So this is no more handled by Anurag, is what my understanding is. So I'm going to just mark it closed. Flow monitor PR is also raised. No, I'm not sure if it is raised. With is there a PR for flow monitor?
Before using a PR for flow monitor, we need to register some of the few PRs in other repos. So
Okay.
I am
Okay.
working on that.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you. So with that said, is Shubha still there? Or Shubha is facing trouble? Okay. We can go for the service mesh updates. Shiv, are you online?
Yeah, Rahul. Yeah. So basically, I've just posted the link for the service mesh requirements document in the Slack channel. So I request folks to go through it. Probably we can go through overview or either way. Either way is fine. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We haven't floated the by any chance have you floated the document on the SIG security Slack channel?
Yeah, just now. So
Oh, just now. Okay, all right. So that's
yeah. So yeah, so it got a bit delayed. So
no worries,
yeah,
no worries.
but it's
Thank
there.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for working on the document. Okay.
Uh, I think
Yeah.
that we just saw the service mesh requirement. I think that if you can, just quick overview, quick and before we're reading, so
Yeah.
maybe you understand better. So
Mm.
just if you can go through quick. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Shiv, do you want to share your screen? I'll just stop.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I've tried to capture is basically a brief network diagram of the way the current NFO install looks
Shiv,
like.
can you just increase it a little bit more, the page
The
size?
font, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like make it how 200. Yeah, this is fine. This works. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So this is the deployment diagram from a network perspective of the NFO system as of now. So we have the UE, GNode B, and UPF in the edge cluster. And we have the regional cluster, which has the 5G core network functions. And we have this VPC network resources as of now. So these network resources basically they translate into, I guess, interconnections between the various clusters. So we've got a VPC RAN, we've got a VPC internal, and we've got a VPC internet. So from an overall requirements perspective, so all the communication within the cluster is not secure as of now, and is open to snooping and a bunch of other attacks. So thanks to Ved, who generated this K8 TLS report, and this K8 TLS report basically lists out the various services which are as of now unsecured. So I think this is slightly, I can increase the size, but then yeah, there is a listing over here of the services which are unsecured as of now. And so that is one particular requirement. The other issue currently is that the communication across clusters need to be secure. So for example, GNode B to AMF, that communication needs to be secured. Also, we need rate control between the various microservices within clusters. Let's say, between the various network functions which are there in the regional cluster. And also we need rate control between clusters, like for example, between the edge and the regional cluster. So also currently there is no observability of various interactions. Like for example, I can't find out what are the various API service calls which are happening between the various microservices. So this observability is needed because we need to, understand any anomalous behavior if it is happening. So in general, a service mesh can address all these issues. But I have considered only those particular aspects of service mesh which are relevant for security. Because there are other uses of service mesh also, such as load balancing and canary testing and so on, which are probably not very relevant for this particular SIG. So over here, I've tried to give the details of individual issues. Like for example, last time there was a particular issue raised whether we want service mesh within a cluster or spanning across clusters. So these particular sections, they talk about the individual choices, which are, I think, more relevant or aligned to us, and also depending on the amount of effort which is there. So this talks about V4, V6 dual stack. So here, and then data plane, control plane, that we are interested only in control plane as of now. Data plane, for example, such as GTP, UPF to GNode B to UPF and so on, that doesn't come under the purview of service mesh. And also, what about multiple interfaces? So this is a quick summary of, what are the various requirements, and then what is nice to have. I think, yeah, that's about it. I think the issues basically, I mean, we can probably, once probably folks go through it, we can discuss, or they can give comments on this and then we can take it forward. Yeah, that's about it.
Shiv, this is beyond quick question. Okay, we can
Yeah.
discuss more, but so in the nephew architecture, there is the nephew component and then vendor operator component and then third party component. So your diagram talking about network function. So
Okay.
let's say, for example, in ONAP, design security, we have similar hit a similar issue. ONAP, we have a same the management cluster, and then we have a prefixed component. So we were able to define scripts for sidecar for each component protected that we done that. But this kind of a network function and dynamically added into the ONAP nephew ecosystem by vendor and operator. How are you gonna who's responsible for this service mesh, the configuration, and then bring the sidecar into network function? So I'm just still curious about who's doing what. That's what I'm saying. It's the nephew responsibility. Operator, once they put this network function, they have to put a script for sidecar. That's I'm curious for now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, probably. So one possibility is, I mean, I'm not, very much sure about your question, but so basically, whenever you're going to deploy inside a given cluster, so you need to basically have the necessary sidecar injection particular activities
Okay.
also, right? So in the form of, I think admission controllers is one particular way to do it, whereby you inject a sidecar into whatever pod is going. I think, other folks can correct me, but that's my understanding. And so that's one way to do it, and so on. Similarly, in general, right, whenever you're going to add pods into a given cluster, so based on some policy, you're going to attach the sidecars into that particular pod, so which will give you the necessary service mesh functionality.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, Buyung, just because because of your alignment with the ONAP, this thing, right? Like, I have one question in the context. Like, in the context of ONAP, is there a mandate of using Istio as the only service mesh? Is it possible for someone like an external vendor to actually use some other service mesh and replace it without doing all the hard work? Like, without it's a big work item, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then it adds a lot of overhead, and there are alternative approaches available. And as a vendor or as a as someone who is deploying ONAP, if I choose to use some other service mesh, how easy, how difficult, or were there any considerations or requirements identified towards that end in ONAP itself?
Yeah, ONAP, the security, when we define the architecture, we defining the reference implementation, but there is a big note. It can be replaced by vendor and an operator choice of the security system. So we're using the Istio and also the Ingress, but I mean the gateway API Istio. But it's possible they can configure the using their own security system. Also, in ONAP, we're using Kickrock as a reference item, but it can be changed, or the federate with the external IDP and external IDAM. So that means there's a flexibility there. So here, and also I was interested listening the proposal for network function security using KubeArmor, for example, and a while ago, because at that time I agreed because the component, like heavy duty component, it makes sense putting the sidecar. We can configure, we can control, and then doesn't matter if we're doing the like for example Istio but if vendor they have different systems, they can configure differently, but network function, there could be thousands network function in the system. That means each network function has the sidecar. That means overhead could be huge. I think that's one of your point of the KubeArmor, but I'm not too clear. And then Istio, they said they try to have a shadow the sidecar, sidecar less, but that's not in prime time. So that's why I'm when I'm looking at this one, this is great, a great requirement. I buy that. But when we have some cases for nephew component and security, not just the network function security, then probably we can tackle that one. But this one, I think, looks like we focus on the nephew network function security, the service mesh, not the network component, like controller, those things, security. So that, I could be wrong, but this requirement can be applied to other area in a genetically. That's my. Anyway, did I answer your own question? We try to provide flexibility. To me, nephew, we provide reference implementation, and we have to put the big note operator vendor. They can switch to their own security system.
Okay. Okay. So in terms of that aspect, Shiv, would we want to consider, like, even if we say that the first implementation will have Istio as the service mesh, but if someone wants to actually deploy some other service mesh, what are the design, or what are the considerations that one might have to keep into, identifying that early on might help some of the users to actually think in those directions as well, right? So maybe that we can capture as a requirement. It at the end of the day, it might just be a document which says that X, Y, and Z are what where the coupling has been done, and as
Okay.
as a user of some other service mesh, you have to take into consideration these three coupling points. Yeah, it could be as simple,
Okay.
simple document.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. So what I understand is
Go
that
ahead.
basically the current requirements are basically independent of the service mesh. It just says that
Right.
what are the
Correct.
and what are the
Right.
general requirements. So should we add a requirement that we should be able to support multiple service meshes? Is that your this one or
No, not support multiple service meshes. That's a different, difficult proposition, I feel. It's
correct? Yeah,
yeah,
that it should be pluggable and then we should be able to
yeah,
plug out
yeah.
and
Yeah. That's the extensible to other, but I think that in nephew we're gonna do one reference implementation. But requirement perspective, this kind of character is fine. I'm okay with it. Okay, so okay, yes.
Thank you.
But the requirement, the list we can tune, we can read, and this is first time I saw, and then so far so good. But I'm saying when we talk about architecture, then we have to discuss what kind of reference implementation architecture, what we are using it, how lay out the service mesh, those things. But we have to talk about it. And also, I like to tackle. I don't know. It's Raul is up to you, but you the first goal, Y3, I want to tackle, the nephew built-in component security, and then operator security. I don't know. It's up to. But looks like we are handling this network function only. So.
No. There's one more beast to actually to tame before we get into service mesh, and that is the identity strategy, right? Like without
Yeah.
that, we can't really execute a lot of stuff. The way I see it, both the service mesh and the secrets management and either any other security component has dependency on the identity, and
Yeah.
that we have to figure out a strategy for that as well.
That's what exactly Brian or Looney, he will
Okay,
present, Erickson
right,
present
fantastic,
the identity and access management. That's a good synergy here. Okay.
right, fantastic.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's head on to the next topic, unless anyone else has a point to make in the context. I'm going to take back the control for the screen if it is okay. Thank you. Secrets management. Any quick updates from your side, Prashant?
Yeah,
I
I
know you
can.
uploaded the
I have
document.
updated a document. I can share my screen.
Oh, all right. Okay. Go ahead. 5 minutes, if possible.
Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so this diagram is a summary of the secrets management document that I made.
Mhm.
If I think people have checked it out and commented as well. So, like as we can see, we see a lot of like all the secrets are stored in the HC database of management cluster, and all the cluster credentials for workload cluster is stored in the workload database as well. So what we want is we want to implement a ward like tool which does which solves all these issues. So like git t tokens are stored as secrets, and like token is long lived, there's no token rotation, and there's personal access token, but we need to implement OAuth, like OAuth for Git, and so on. So these are the requirements that we need. And then design and architecture, as we discussed, we need a loosely coupled architecture so that others could implement their own vault-like system, like AWS has their own secrets management and all that. And for us, we can use open source. Here's an example of the tool that I got, and it has quite some like good features. And as mentioned, token rotation and also implementing in the CI. So and then we have this multi-cluster access. So again, I think we need to like work on identities of different individual controllers, and even cross-cluster identities are needed, like spiffy. And then token controllers will tell these cluster identities that they will access this particular secret only, and they won't have any other. They won't be able to access any other cluster which have different identities. And then like the question is, what are the resources needed? Like the vault, does this vault need to run in another cluster, and how will we deploy it? That's the question. And yeah, that's it. Like that's the whole idea.
Okay. I think there has to, first of all, can I call for a review for this document? Is there anyone who would like to review the document and give explicit review comments, saying that seems okay, or
I've had a review, I think, in an earlier version, but
Okay.
I'd like to have another review.
Thank you,
That's all.
Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I guess Wim also knows a lot about secrets, so
No,
we can pick.
so we need an explicit review, right? And the same goes for the service mesh document. Want to call out for an explicit reviewer that I can tag in the context. Do we have anyone who can take it up? You can take it up, Bhim? That would be awesome.
No, I can take offline I'm gonna read the document definitely. So I'm gonna provide
Super.
comment to
Thank you.
Steve. And then one comment, since you're talking about SPIFFA and the Spire. So for service mesh, Jim from Orion team, they say Orion is looking for service mesh with the SPIFFA and then Spire,
Correct.
specification you mentioned, right? So that means we are talking about some, identity, the standard. So
Correct.
Anyway, so when I'm gonna review both document and then provide offline comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. I'll make it explicit in the in the comments. Thank you, folks. Now would be a good time to move into the next agenda item, which is identity and access management. Brian, the floor is yours. Do you have something to share on the screen? Brian, are you there? Can
Yeah,
you
I
hear?
hear. Okay, sorry.
Fantastic.
Just
Yeah, we can
more
hear you.
used to Teams than Zoom. So, so let me see. Let me know when you can see something.
Yes, we can see the
You can
document.
see, yep.
Okay, good. Hi, everyone. I'm Brian O'Looney I work in Ericsson in the engineering unit for OSS, and I'm a colleague of Byung and Manuela here. I guess what I wanted to do was talk about this feature that we'd like to, I guess, put on the runway for the security SIG around identity and access management. And it really started internally as a discussion about how we would apply the types of access control we have in traditional systems to this new kind of Nethio paradigm. So essentially, it's like being able to control who can do what to which resources is going to boil it down to into what the purpose is. And Nefio, as we know, spans a lot of different resource types and different processes and tasks. Then those map back into, you know, various organizations and roles and responsibility structures inside the operator. So it's important as we, you know, hopefully build Nefio into products and solutions and into security architectures that, you know, the operators can manage and enforce and audit user identities and access in a way that kind of fits their, you know, needs around that. And it's, as I said, a vital aspect of management systems in production environments, dealing with real networks.
So Brian, would you mind we asking the questions while you're presenting?
Yeah, throw questions as we go along. I think that's
fantastic.
fine.
So you mentioned explicitly about user identities. Is this document primarily about the user identity and access management, or would it also consider the workload identity or service identity, as we call it?
When you say workload identity, what do you mean by workload identity?
For example, we were talking about secrets management, right? Like now you have workloads who need to identify themselves before accessing secrets. So which means there needs to be an identity solution in place. Typically, that's where, you know, you might have seen references from Prashant talking about spiffy, right? So that's the part that I was talking.
The quick comment, Brian can, you know, answer that, but this document become later on, there's not only user and machine to machine identity. So that means that can be used for, you know, workload, you know, connection. So it handles both. But Brian, is that right? Manuela,
yeah, I have a comment too. I think that, as you said, the main is user for both machine to machine and also human users. But then the evolution will go to take into account also workload, because in a world where the perimeter is no longer valid as external perimeter of the system, we need to go inside the system and having an identity and access management even in the communication between the services inside. So let's start with the access control for the external user that could be both machine to machine and also human, but then we can enlarge it to take into account also the internal communication, and then also some other entity that could be in some way identified, because in the future every piece inside shall have an identity too.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is both. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. There will be mapping between the user and then machine to machine. Anyway, okay. Yeah, Brian.
Yeah, okay. Thanks. Keep the questions, comments coming. Then following the template, I guess the stakeholders, operators, integrators, and vendors of management solutions. And obviously, because it's about access management and identity management, it applies to all personas using the system. Design architecture considerations. So I think we want a solution that's flexible enough to enable various access control schemes. So I guess not be hard-coded on particular schemes. So we could have control schemes, for example, based on the user roles. So for example, whether they're a network designer or operations people, the kind of proposer and approver flows for blueprints and deployments, the types of resources that users or roles can work with. So whether they can work with network functions or infrastructure type responsibilities and network function type. So for example, if they're working with core or RAN, different areas or regions of the network, and then the kind of mapping to the organization and tenants. So there's different types of access that we want to be able to enable. It should be, obviously, you want a solution where the administration of these roles and policies isn't a nightmare. So ease of administration is an important consideration. Ability to integrate into operators' own security infrastructure. So typically we have, requirements of integrating into operators' LDAP systems and identity providers systems. And then the logging of user actions through a chain of components. So there's various, as it moves through the Nefio system, there's various components involved in the action to to implement the workloads eventually on the clusters and management of those resources. In terms of prerequisites, I don't know if these are prerequisites or dependencies, but somebody coming into Nefio, now it's sometimes difficult to understand what the Nefio security architecture is, what are the Nefio security principles, so how it, for example, views things like identity and access management, and the obviously for this authorization, we need to have a view on the authentication solution. So these are probably things that could be, we're at the early stages of Nefio, and these are things that probably can be built up and developed as we go along. But I think they're important for both the Nefio community, but also communicating externally in terms of what the Nefio system brings and how that works in a identity and access management solution. Okay, so the requirements, and again, not to scare everyone off. So when we think about identity and access management, we have these kind of three main areas where we have the identity access control, administration and configuration, and the actual authentication of the users and the clients, and then the authorization part. So I guess in the implementation of the solution, we need to think about those aspects. Not all of those aspects need to be explicitly provided by Nefio, but it needs to fit into a solution that provides those requirements. On the non-functional side, we can think about things like documentation, so security overviews, admin guides, integration guides, etc. We may have package authoring design rules. So one of the things we talked about was that we may have labels or other metadata in packages that allow or lend themselves to enabling access control. So we may decide to have some guidelines or authoring design rules around that. And potentially we would also deliver some example policy rules as part of the deliverables.
Brian, may I comment a couple of things here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to give some information, first the bullet, the identity access control administration configuration. So many of the decent the item system, for example, KickWrap, they can handle this kind of a capability. So it's not just we don't have to implement, because this is already done, provided by the third-party item system. An option to configure the connections to external IDP, and then also federation or substitute with the external IAM. That's the current capability, but the architecture, security architecture, has to address how to replace it. For example, in ONAP case, Ingress, they connecting that to OAuth2 proxy, since we support the OAuth2. And then the proxy can determine it's gonna go to reference implemented the KeyCloak in ONAP, or you're gonna connecting that to the external the LDAP. So that's the kind of a configuration. That's why focus configuration. And authentication also that can handle by item, and also service mesh can provide the coarse-grained authentication and authorization. So here we provide the RBAC, TBAC, and ABAC, and that's we can talk more. And attribute-based access control is very fine-grained, so it's nice to have. And you can control, and maybe the probably nephew could be mandatory, but it's nice to have anyway. So you can pinpoint which the attribute, which based on attribute they can control access control. And logging is important. In ONAP, we have a separate the section for logging. So here the nephew and their the component, they don't require to handle logging and auditing themselves. They just providing the log information generation. So collection, aggregation, and then storage, and then visualization can be done by external the system, CM system including. So anyway, so here just the requirement. This is what we expect from nephew. That's my understanding based on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bjorn. I see Subhash has his hand raised.
Subhash, go ahead.
Hello. So last time, actually, in the last meeting, I was trying to visualize the similar aspects by calling it like a common governance framework for the nephew. So there
I watched the presentation.
Yeah. So sorry, Brian, I did not hear you correctly. Could you repeat once again?
No, I said I did. I watched back on the recording. So I saw that you presented a policy framework. Last week.
Yeah. So would it be just I'm asking your thoughts, like would it be a nice idea we take this all consideration and try to build some policy framework in the SIG security, so that we can address all the aspects, like some runtime security requirements are there, and some design time requirements are there.
Subhash, I'm not sure if that overlaps here, right? Like this is purely from the identity and access management, from the user identities and the likes, isn't it? So this might be
I think maybe in terms of the how we define these access policies and enforce those. I mean, there may be some relationship there. I think from listening to the recording, I think your focus was on other types of configuration that you wanted to apply policies to. and that's valid as well. And where I think this is specifically about tying users and their roles to specific resources. So it's kind of focused on that.
Yeah.
On that aspect.
Brian, if I may inject a little bit. Okay, I understand what Subhash coming from. So I understand this is the identity, and since we're talking about authentication, authorization, many of them, they're using the policy. For example, if you're looking at the XACML, there is a policy administration point, policy decision point, and policy execution point. The policy execution point can be done in the runtime, for example, and then like service mesh and other, the ingress, then we can execute we're gonna filter out which one. But as administration perspective, we define the users and the tenancy and the roles, and then we can administrate. Also, when nephew getting the traffic, they can ask the policy decision point, and that can be decide what to do, their recommendation, then policy execution point to take the input from PDP, and they actually restrict the access. That's the kind of the structure. So if you're talking about in large view, policy makes sense, but since we're not talking about implementation here, we just very quiet. But for example, the Kickrug, they have a policy configuration that acting as a PAP and PDP, and also some coarse grain authentication. They do some PEP too. So anyway, so this one, Brian, my view is we providing what's the requirement, and then the Subhash has a good point. And but how you gonna link your policy framework and the vendor provided the policy, the handling, and that's the second level question. But I think I got your point. But everything is policy, for example, and then attribute. So anyway, for requirement for now, we focusing. This is what we wanted to have for nephew and R3, and how to go there, and we have to discuss another round for architecture and reference implementation discussion. Maybe we can discuss further at that time. But anyway, Manuela, you have any input here?
Just one, the fact that in Kubernetes, ABAC is implemented via policy, and this is an integration, a collaboration between the AAM that we can have on top, and then the mapping between the fact that a user could have a role, and this role could be mapped below in the policy for the authorization on Kubernetes. Okay, meaning in a multi-layer. Because anyway, Kubernetes has no authentication at all. So we need it for the authentication, some AAM, and then for the authorization, that could be a match between what we define on top in the AAM and how to implement and map in the permission that we're going to give on the clusters.
Yeah, I think we're gonna give more detail. Subhash, I'm not gonna discount your idea, but this is good.
Okay.
And then, so we just talk and how to handle policy, and everything is policy. So the Kubernetes policy, Istio policies. Anyway, just for information. Shiva has a question. Okay.
Yep. I have just another point, a little point, is also the fact that my main doubt is if we want that this AAM, that is for sure an important piece of the system, should be inside the system or outside, meaning that for sure we have all this requirement that we put here. But then the question is if we want to implement or use open source internally as part of Nefio, or just integrate with an external one where the definition of all the requirement is anyway mandatory, and the interface has to be standard, and so on and so forth. Just inside or outside that is related to the fact that we put here the external IDP and federation, and could be both, maybe configurable, just configurable. Okay, just another point to reflect.
Thank you
Is
for
it
that
Shiv
point.
is next, or
Yeah. So just one point. So it would be great to have these points listed in the document itself, so that we can get clarification. It's not possible to achieve. It's very easy to speculate on this thing and say we can do this or that right now, but it's best to converge on in the document itself as to what we'll be eventually doing.
yeah.
Thank
We develop. I guess this is a starting
Thank you very much. Yes.
in terms of defining the kind of requirements and stuff.
Yes.
But obviously this is your first sight of it, and then we need to, with hopefully, if we agree to work together to develop it further, then we should expand the document to to include those points.
Got it. So we have maybe 5 more minutes before we can open a floor for. We need to keep 5 more minutes for some discussion. So Shiv, you raised your hand. Sorry for.
Yeah, not a problem. So basically, I just had only one point. So basically, if we are, could we have the problem statement somewhere? Probably, I mean, in the sense that, see, for example, OAuth is already there in some sense, right, in Kubernetes and so on. So what do we mean by OAuth over here? So that sort of a thing, right? I mean, or is that clear to all folks? So
You eventually need a user authentication, user identities, RBAC mechanisms to be present, right? And eventually you need to create tokens like OIDC tokens, which can be used in external APIs and things like that for automation purposes. So all of these are the requirements. This as within Kubernetes, there exist users, there exist service accounts, and those kind of identities, but this is across the whole system, right? It's not at a given cluster. So you need to have a user management and RBAC system in place. It's not at a Kubernetes individual.
Yeah, right. So then I think that has to come out clearly. I mean, in terms of saying that this is cross cluster, or maybe it's already obvious, but then it'd be nice to have that. Yeah.
Have an introduction section where it is clearly stated just for the purpose. Okay. Shiv,
Were
if you
you
can raise the comment.
you were asking? Sorry, you were asking for a kind of a problem statement. Was it?
Exactly.
That's
Right. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. Maybe we can describe that in a better way. What's the problem?
Yeah. I mean, it's just a comment. I mean, that's it. Yeah.
I guess, like you said, a lot of these, in terms of, if you look at this list, a lot of these things are, from a problem point of view, I guess there's solutions. They're solved, you could say, but I think the challenge, or what we want to understand, is how do we apply that and map that to Nefio?
Yeah, right. I mean, across all the clusters, I think that's the point. Yeah.
But also the management cluster.
Not only across the cluster, but also the fact that in the cluster Kubernetes, for sure, there is the concept of user, but the token has to be provided by something else, an identity provider. And so this is a requirement, because the token that is just generated inside is for internal communication. If we want a real secure solution with revocation or refresh based on standard protocol, we need a specific identity provider that provides a token to use for the cluster. And this is true for just one cluster, and for sure if we need to have a full solution crossing all the different cluster for the different region and the technology of the networks.
In the future, secure communication between the Nephew and Orange, for example. So we see, but that's a future discussion. But anyway, so you said we have a 5 minute, Raul?
Yeah. So
Okay.
we have So Brian, maybe 3-4 minutes more.
Yeah,
anything pending from you? Go ahead, please.
yeah. So maybe I'll move on. Acceptance criteria. This isn't. I guess one thing we can look at is reference solutions. So, for example, if we define, what's part of the Nefio solution and components, and what are its integration points towards the security infrastructure that we could define or build a reference solution that proves that. There's I guess testing of the features, and as I've said, maybe documentation, related documentation to the solution. Things that are out of scope, there's a lot of things that are already covered in your other proposals. So for example, the secrets management, service mesh, etc., certificate management, data encryption, they're not part of this. So there's I guess a much broader security set of requirements that you're covering through other work that's not part of this. So I think it's this, I guess, thrown in here or put in here as a kind of a straw man. So what we were trying to sketch here is like a potential mapping onto. Can we make it bigger? Yeah, you can. Yeah. 200. Is 200 the maximum on this? Seems to be. Maybe you can edit it. Is that better or?
It's better. It's better. 200 is okay to me, but I don't know other people. But
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we talked a bit about the IDAM systems in terms of what they can provide. So in terms of the users accessing the Nefio system, they can come through a proxy, which would then work in terms of that with the user, with that user role and identity, and then we could, enforce some access control at that point on that, based on that user and their role. But in terms of what we discussed, we think that we may not be able to cover the full range of access that based on kind of those if you like, the blueprints or the unhydrated packages. So they'll have a particular context. So we may need another level of validation of when we get to the hydrated packages, because they'll contain information about what particular clusters or whatever are being targeted by that deployment package. So we may need different levels of validation of access management, depending on whether it's a blueprint level or an actual deployment package. But I think this is really, like I said, a straw man to try and work with what might be the parts of Nefio that are needed as part of this solution, and what that surface and how we can apply this to the different resources that we have in that we're managing in Nefio.
Thank you. So, Brian, any other? So, since we are almost we have 5 minutes pending. Is there any specific call to action?
Welcome your feedback on this. I guess we can, if
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
shared already, we can share it, and then I guess we can work to develop it further.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for preparing this. It's really helpful. This is an important problem, and this has been brought to the notice of SIG security even before as to what we're going to do in the context. So it's certainly relevant. The document has to be shared if possible, if okay, please share it on the SIG security channel and add it to the link, add the link to the meeting notes if possible directly. Second part is from the reviewers aspect, right? Like the two parts. One is the requirements, the high level requirements. Section 2, I guess, summarizes the requirement. Those requirements, please go through and check if it is missing any clear action item. This is in general a call to action for all the reviewers on this call, or anyone who accepts to review this particular document and identifies to send in the review comments. So, requirements section and the high level design section, right? Like these are the two sections that we would need clarification, and we can have subsequent discussions.
Correct.
Okay.
So, is there anyone who would like to be explicitly associated as a reviewer in the context? Subhash has a comment on this.
I would like my security colleague to review it, if that's okay.
Okay,
I'll handle it from a Vodafone point of view. But
sounds good.
Hey, Rahul, I just would like to add. So, sometime back, I did one small demo, like how we could validate the policy inside the KPT packages. So that workflow I can review, and I can enhance the policy framework. That could become a requirement for policy framework. That I can do it.
Okay.
Cool. And I think in going forward, these are big enough topic to have separate discussion in itself.
Yeah.
Once it goes to the next level, we will have to have separate discussions towards these aspects individually. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we want to
yeah.
put it on the put it on your map for now, and then it obviously needs work to develop it further.
Awesome.
Yeah.
As Rahul, you said, the requirement section, we have to collect all the feedback, and then component architecture is different story. We have another discussion because there's more detail, and then now, okay.
Yeah. Another point is Manuela mentioned about one specific action item, right? Like should the components be a third-party components, or will it be installed as part of the Nefio itself? So that's an important consideration that should be added to the document itself, and the position has to be clarified.
Yeah.
Okay. We have last 1 minute to go. I think we are back on time. Any other last minute thoughts from anyone? A lot of exciting stuff happening in this on the SIG, so stay tuned. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
you too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye bye.